called the epic. And of all the genres, literary genres, in writing probably the most famous books are written in the genre of literary epic, starting with Homer, the Iliad, the Odyssey, and the Virgil's Aeneid. And then building upon that is Dante's Divine Comedy, Milton's Paradise Lost. The purpose of an epic is incredibly important because, you see, you could one built upon the other, you know. In Homer, it's the Iliad and then the Odyssey, the Iliadic War and the wanderings of Odysseus. Virgil reversed that. He built on that, but he made first the wanderings, the first part of the 6 books, and then comes the war. Of course, the one who led Dante into the Inferno and up was, of course, Virgil himself. But human reason could only take you so far, and so he just had to bring him into the world of faith. But it's in the epic that you see the whole. Our problem today is this. Everything's a slice of life. You watch television, you go to movies, you laugh, you're entertained and so forth, but you come out just as stupid as you went in. That's a fact. You see, because you don't see the whole. It's a slice, it's a slice, it's a slice. And you have to see the whole vision to understand how this fits into the part. Everything is situational ethics today. What do I mean by situation? Well, Father, you have to say, in my case, I'm able to do the most damnable things because in my case, wait a second, is it right or wrong in terms of the whole vision of who you are and as a human being? You must ask this question, not in my case. So, for example, in the Aeneid, you have the great hero, Alma, Verumque, Cano, Troia, Primus Aboris. You see, the great hero is Aeneas. And how does he start? He starts by the first 3 words we give to his mouth, thrice and 4 times blessed are those who are dead. Amazing. End at the beginning. That's always the way. Human tragedy starts with great hopes and ends in the crucifixion. Christian tragedy starts usually with the crucifixion and ends in the resurrection. Tremendous hope. So what happens is, with Aeneas, he gets bogged down, and he's supposed to lead his men to Troy, to Rome, and as a storm comes up, he's loved down, and there's a beautiful woman there called Dido. And he falls in love with her, and she with him. They're both from backgrounds of prince royalty, they're leading the people, they're both beautiful and young, it's a natural thing, except that can't be done. She has committed to our people to establish Carthage. He has committed to bring his men to Rome. But they get caught. And when she's starting to fall in love, she goes to her sister Anna and she weeps. And there's so many modern day Annas. What do I mean? You go and you say, I'm pregnant, what should I do? You start crying, and everybody starts to tell you whatever you want to hear to stop the tears. Instead of to tell you the truth, let them cry. Let them cry. So she tells it, it's okay. She said, I'm falling in love again. I shouldn't do this. And eventually what happens, of course, is she falls in love, and she tells Aeneas, if you would leave, I'd take my life. And he says, so he can't get out of it either. He has lost his manliness. He is in this process of not being the leader. He still has to grow up. That's his wandering. It's psychological. It's internal. And suddenly, the king of the gods sends Mercury as his messenger, and he says to Aeneas, what are you doing here? What kind of a man are you? You become effeminate. You're supposed to be the leader. Get up and out of here. And he does. And what happens with Dido? She says, oh my God, he's left. And she builds this funeral pyre. She's going to take her life. And who walks into the room but Anna, her sister? And she said, what are you doing? You, she said, you brought all this evil upon me. When I was caught up in my crying and emotion, I came to you for direction and help. You were too weak. Curse you, damn you. And she killed herself in the presence of her sister Anna in a state of shock. You know how many times people are not strong when the other person is weeping in conditions where you have to tell them the truth, and you end up telling whatever they want to hear because they're weeping? You can't do that. In the end, they'll curse you. They'll curse you. You brought this upon me. You must be strong Christians and speak the truth. In the long run, it was wrong for Aeneas to stop there. He was wrong, but it was right for him to leave. Because he had to leave, and he had to go and establish a new Troy, which was called Rome, that gave to the world the great gift of the Roman law that we had up until our times, And the personification of irrationality that had to crush was Taurus. And so finally it ended up that he leaves, and it's in the context of the whole that you see what was right or wrong, not the particular situation. In America, in Australia, you would just see the slice of life of Aeneas that died or cursed Aeneas for leaving. You wouldn't understand. He must leave. He was wrong to stay. You have to have vision. You have to see the whole in order to live your life wisely. Now, I would tell you this. Sometimes I am asked, where were you at 9/11 when the buildings came down, since you are from New York? Well, the truth of the matter is this. I was at the Twin Towers. I was at the Twin Towers at 11 o'clock on the 9/10. And I was there because there was a doctor from Romania who had been a month with us at the monastery, and a Dr. Monica who was an abortionist, who is now a tremendous pro-life person and her husband an engineer. And we went and we saw the Twin Towers the day before. We took pictures of it. And she wanted to go back this final night to see the accomplishment of man before she returned to Romania that evening of 9/11. The next morning, we're outside the abortion mill. And it is situated at the foot of New York Harbor. And you can look across the harbor and see the Twin Towers. By God, the plane went into one tower, and then it came into the other. And the wind was blowing in our direction. And it came right across the harbor to us. And it was absolutely midnight and midday. And the debris was falling upon our heads. You know, everything in New York stopped in that day, except for what? The killing of the babies. The abortion clinics all through that incredible moment. And I was outside the abortion mill. And people were inside watching this on TV while waiting to kill their babies. You know, it's an amazing thing. Planned Parenthood, you know what their contribution was in the end? Planned Parenthood, I'll tell you this. They said all the wives who lost their husbands in the Twin Towers, as their gift, their contribution, they will give free abortions to the women who are pregnant. God forgive me. God forgive me. You understand what we're dealing with? But at any rate, they were watching it, and I could not leave. But there was a priest with me. His name was Father Delendic. There were two chaplains in the New York City Fire Department. Father Delendic was one, Father Judge was the other. Father Judge died. Father Delendic said to me, "Phil, I have to leave." And he left. And I couldn't leave because they were still killing babies where I was. And he went over there and he told me this. You may not know this. But most of the city, New York City, firemen were Catholics. Fact. And when they got there, both towers were now burning. And they turned around to Father Delendic and they said, "Father, this is worse than the Battle of Normandy. We're not coming back. We know that. Isn't the conditions present for general absolution?" He said, "You are right." And those New York City firemen, you may not know this, they took off their helmets and they knelt down and asked God for mercy. And he absolved them all. And then they stood up and put their helmets on and they ran into the burning buildings. When they got inside the building, in case of a fire, you always told, don't use the elevators, that's for the firemen. They got inside the building and the elevators weren't working. And what they began to do was this. Those firemen started to make their way up because it was the 80th floor. But they went to the first floor and they got the people out. And the second floor, and they got the people out. And that morning, those men, they saved 25 to 30,000 people. They got them out of the building. And those people said they will never forget. They were running down the stairs to save their lives. And these brave men were running up the stairs knowing that they would not return. And they were right. Before they reached the 80th floor, the buildings came down. And in 3 minutes, 350 firemen died. And suddenly in America, there was a new definition of the hero. The hero was not the Hollywood stars. It was not the football players. It was not the movies. It was mom and dad being faithful even unto death. to whatever duties and obligations were given to them. And that's the story of those firemen. I myself, I got to ground zero at midnight, literally. And I got through the 7 checkpoints, and I was there with the doctor from Romania and an engineer. And we were standing there, and it was like an atom bomb had hit the place. There were 8 buildings came down, not 2, 8. And what happened, these men were being dragged out. Rescuers were there dragging these people out of this burning inferno. And you felt so helpless standing there. And what I did was this, and I tell you this because it's a true story, feeling so helpless, what could we do? We started to say the rosary at ground zero. And as I'm saying the rosary at ground zero, I closed my eyes, and I saw once again the people getting ready, the workers going off to the water fountain, getting a cup of coffee, 9 in the morning, getting ready for work, feeling so secure, so safe. And suddenly I saw, coming into that building once again, the object of the terrorists, those planes with 50,000 gallons of gas exploding like an atom bomb. And while my eyes were still closed, standing there at ground zero, I saw something totally different. And it'll never be the same. I saw suddenly not the people inside that building so safe and so secure. I saw a room. And in the room I saw a child, an unborn child, so secure, so safe. And suddenly into that room I saw an object, an obstacle piercing it, of a terrorist. It was the instruments of the terrorist. And the child had nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. And then I began to realize, my God, ground zero is not here. It's wherever innocent blood is under attack and is being taken. Ground zero, my friend, is here. It's in Sydney. It's in Austria. It's in Cape Town, South Africa. It's all over the world that I have gone. And we need ordinary people like you to go to ground zero with the love of Jesus Christ. And the people who need your help is not only unborn children, it's the mom and dad, the people working there caught in this culture of death. Jesus loves them, and so must we. Jesus died for them. He never stopped loving them. He went to Calvary out of love for the people who put him to death. He wants the abortionists in heaven. He wants mom and dad in heaven. He wants them all. And you must bring Jesus where he wants to go today, to modern day Calvary. You know, we have in New York City, Occupy Wall Street. Radical. It's not radical. It's 99% versus the 1. It's only radical if you will occupy Marcus Singer Square. That's the real injustice in the world today. It's not the 99 versus the 1%. It's the born versus the unborn. It's meaningless to speak about sharing in the wealth of this world if you're not allowed to be alive and be born. Every other child practically in New York City is aborted right now. And if you're not helping them to be born, and what's the great, when you are born, is to have $1 million? That's nonsense. Who cares? To be born is to be able to love mom and dad, to be alive, to know people, to know others. This is the great thing. Matter of fact, when you find the riches of Christ, you give away your wealth to the others, and you give yourself to others in love. That's what it means to be born and to be rich. And you are called to occupy today's modern Calvary, where this is taking place. You know, in New York, we had Martin Luther King's birthday, the Monday before I left. Martin Luther King's niece is a good friend of mine. And she said, my uncle was totally against abortion. My uncle, if he was alive today, Father, he would be with you praying outside of these abortion clinics. And Martin Luther King, in his final talk, if you remember what he said, I have reached the mountaintop. And I can see from this mountain, he said, I can see the promised land. The land where a man will be judged not by the color of his skin, but by the content of his character. He said, I can see, I don't know if I'm going to get there, but I do know as a people, you will get there. And I can see today, I can see that not only will a person, the promised land, where a person is judged not by the color of his skin, but the contents of the character, but not only will a person be treated equally, born or unborn, everyone be treated equally, whether you're born or unborn, as a human being, as a person. It's going to happen in America, I assure you of that. It's going to happen here in Australia after